Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's always a pleasure to welcome a United States Senator to the Real Estate Roundtable. And it's a particular pleasure of mine to welcome one of my home senators, Senator Tim Kaine from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Senator Kaine's been with us in the past. He's been very generous with his time. So I think we're all pretty familiar with him. His longer bio is in the meeting app, so please take a look at it. But a couple of things just to highlight before we get going. He's a member of the Senate Budget Committee, the Foreign Relations Committee, Armed Services. Prior to his election in 2010, Senator Kaine was the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia from 2006 to 2010. It was during that time that Virginia attained national attention for being the best state for business in America. And I know a lot of you own assets in Virginia, have investments in Virginia. And if you don't, I'm sure Senator Kaine would welcome more investments and more assets in our Commonwealth. One other very interesting thing, well, there's several interesting things about Senator Kaine, but he is one of only, I believe, 20 people, let's say, in America's history who have served as mayor, governor, and senator. And of course, as we all well know, Senator Kaine was the vice presidential nominee in 2016. So please join me in welcoming Senator Kaine back to the roundtable. Senator, it's great to see you. When we visited last week, we thought that you were going to be spending the bulk of your time with us talking about the health crisis and the fallout from the COVID crisis, and we'll get into that. But of course, since that time on Friday evening, Justice Ginsburg did pass, and obviously that is now moving front and center in American politics. When she passed, I think you issued a comment, or part of your comment was just that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a giant. And maybe we could just begin on that big issue of how do you see this process unfolding, and how can Americans be comfortable that we're going to proceed in a proper way here?
Jeff, hey, listen, thank you for the invite to come on. And what I'd love to do is to say a word about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and then answer your question, because people think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court Justice, but a reminder about her as an attorney. The U.S. Congress changed the Constitution in 1870 to guarantee to all people equal protection of the laws. Immediately, there started to be lawsuits filed. State of Illinois won't allow a woman to practice law. And the Supreme Court said, no, equal protection of the laws, that doesn't apply to women. It was not until 1971 that the Supreme Court said in a case called Reed versus Reed that phrase, all people are entitled to equal protection of the laws, applies to women. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as an attorney, was the architect of that. I mean, think about it. We had an equality guarantee, and it took 100 years for the court to say, yeah, no, that applies to women. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the attorney, was the architect of that. Then as Supreme Court Justice, she's known for so many things, but as Virginians, one of her pivotal decisions was a state university, Virginia Military Institute, could not be a public university, but not extend equal access to women to be students there. So she had an amazing, amazing life. What's going to happen in the court? Bluntly, if the Republican majority had handled the Merrick Garland nomination the way other nominations had been handled, the vacancy came up 9 months before a presidential election, and they had been willing to meet with them and hold hearings and have a vote up or down, but have a vote on the floor, then this would be a very different situation. We urged the Republican majority, let's handle this in the normal course of business. But they said, in no uncertain terms, here's the way we're going to do this. Because this vacancy has occurred in the last year of a presidential nomination, we're not going to take it during the election season. We're not going to take it up. And in the words of Lindsey Graham, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and hold these words against me, if there is a Republican president, we're going to follow the same rule. Jeff, that was a promise to us. It was a promise to the American public. I wish they hadn't announced that was the rule in 2016, but that's what they did. And they should live by those words. They should honor their words to the American public. So I'm going to oppose any action on any nominee. It could be Judge Judy or Aaron Judge. I don't care. I'm going to oppose any action on any nominee until the dust settles after Election Day. And I hope that there will be at least 4 Republicans who will be good to their word.
But you assume that the vote, that an actual vote would be not prior to the election. I assume that it would be a lame duck, but
probably so, Jeff. I think that's sort of the conventional wisdom, that the vote might be in a lame duck. And obviously, I would argue that if either the Senate or the White House goes Democratic, then it should be after Inauguration Day. Yeah. Obviously, if President Trump is reelected and if Senate Republicans hold the majority, they will want to move forward in the lame duck session, and I would understand that. And again, I'll assess a nominee and decide whether the nominee is good enough to earn my support or not. But if there is a change in either the White House or the Senate that would confirm a justice, we should wait till after Inauguration Day.
Senator, I mentioned that you were the vice presidential nominee in 2016. I remember back in 2016 that it was the most important election of our life, right? I remember that in 2012 and 2008. So we're saying that again this year. This time it might be true. What are your thoughts, just in general, big picture, on what is at stake these days?
Well, Jeff, I'm going to be real blunt. I thought the 2016 election was very important, but I didn't think it was the most important. Even though I was on the ballot, I didn't have the feeling that it was the most important vote that I'd ever cast, even being personally involved. But what I think about this election is not only is it the most important vote I'll ever cast, that I've ever cast, it will be the most important vote that I ever will cast in the future. And I intend to live for a very long time. The reason is this. Yeah, the reason is this, and I'm just going to be very blunt about it. I obviously think Americans made a mistake in 2016, but we make mistakes. I mean, look, we're human beings. We make mistakes personally. We make mistakes as a country. We get things wrong. But one of the great things about us is we've shown as a nation a remarkable ability to make a mistake, learn from it, grow, improve. The most recent rally set of rallies that President Trump had over the weekend, he did one in Bemidji, Minnesota, and a president of the United States on stage praised this audience for their genes. I don't think I need to explain in Bemidji, Minnesota, what that reference meant. He praised a police firing a rubber bullet that hit a reporter, said that was a beautiful example of law and order, while everyone recognized he was peacefully covering a peaceful protest. And then he also went on an extended riff in the speech praising Robert E. Lee, as if Robert E. Lee, for some reason, had something to do with where America should be going in 2020. I think that the nation made a grievous mistake in 2016, and we've got tens of thousands of unnecessary deaths, unnecessary economic depression, and unnecessary social division as a clear result of that mistake. What's at stake in this election is a whole series of things. The Supreme Court that will hear the challenge to the Affordable Care Act, our foreign policy. Can we create an economy that works for all? But what's really at stake, Jeff, in my view, is can we continue to say about ourselves that we're human, we can make mistakes, but we're good enough to learn, grow, and improve. And I believe we have an opportunity to embrace an administration known by competence and compassion and character, rather than continuing down the path of death and division and economic depression. I think it's that stark. I hope we're still smart enough to realize that we can do better. And that's what seems to me to be at stake. And that's why I view this election as so existentially important.
Thank you for that. I did not realize that was in Bemidji, Minnesota. Oddly enough, that's where my father was born. I did not know that was there.
Is that right?
Statement about that. And it does bring home that we are all humans. We're all from different places. And I'm just, it's amazing to hear some of the things that are being said these days. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, the COVID crisis, the pandemic, whether you think another relief bill might be done. Obviously, we're interested in helping tenants, residential and business tenants, have the rent to pay, or the funds to pay their rent. We're interested in some sort of roadmap on what businesses should do to protect themselves from liability concerns. We've got cleanup expenses that are out, you know, quite high. How do you see, and maybe because of this Supreme Court situation, that has pushed the chances of a new bill even more remotely. But what are your thoughts there?
Well, Jeff, I am worried about the last point that you mentioned, but let me say, so obviously, look, Congress worked well together to do 4 sizable coronavirus relief packages in March and April, totaling vastly more than the Recovery Act after the 2008-2009 fiscal collapse. So I'll give the bipartisan House, Senate, Democrat, Republican, White House, Congress, give everybody credit for that. It wasn't perfect. We didn't get everything right, but acting under some tough circumstances, we did a good job. The 5th bill has been much harder to get. It's been harder to get because, frankly, the House passed the HEROES Act in May. My expectation was that the Senate would do something very different, but the Senate really didn't even take up a bill for a vote until mid-September. So it was, 4 months before the Senate would take up a vote. And frankly, that's largely because of divisions on the GOP side between a number of Republican senators who know we need to do more, and about 20 who Senator McConnell has candidly said they're not going to vote for another penny. So where's the path forward? We need to do another bill. We need to provide more assistance for families and individuals. There's got to be rent assistance for reasons that we may get into here. There have to be. Moratoriums on evictions is insufficient. You've got to enable people to pay. You've got to enable the owners of property to maintain their properties and pay off loans. So there's got to be broader rental assistance. There needs to be more for healthcare. So my hope is that we'll do something. When Senator McConnell put a proposal on the table finally for a vote about 10 days ago in the Senate, we knew it would fail because it was purely a Republican proposal with no Democratic involvement. But what we hoped is the same thing would happen as happened in March. Senator McConnell put a Republican proposal on the table for a vote on a Sunday. Democrats voted against it. But by Thursday, we had a bipartisan proposal and we passed it. So when the first vote happened on the latest act, the HEALS Act, we were like, okay, now let's really talk. It didn't look like talks were starting, but last week, 2 good things happened. Number one, President Trump tweeted out, hey, Senate GOP, you got to be willing to do a little bit more. And number 2, a very strong, solid proposal, in my view, was advanced on the House by the Problem Solvers Caucus. Some in the Real Estate Roundtable are active with no labels. In my view, this was a very good proposal. 25 House members, 25 Republicans, 25 Ds. Not everything I might want, and a few things that I don't love, but you're not going to get another deal if it's not bipartisan. And so I urge Senator McConnell, take this bill up on the Senate floor. Some of my colleagues might have amendments they want to offer, but take it up on the Senate floor and we can get something done. So those 2 things last week sort of opened a door for a 5th bill. I am a little worried that the Supreme Court will now take the air out of the room. And I would be very disturbed if, for 4 months, the Senate majority wouldn't take up a COVID bill, but now in, 10 days, they'll take up a Supreme Court justice and avoid what I think remains a pretty crying need to find a COVID relief package. And I will say in conclusion, that Problem Solvers bill addresses rent. It addresses the PPP program. It addresses, in my view, in a more reasonable way, issues around liability protection than the original Senate proposal, which provided protection with no standard. Everybody gets protected even if they behave badly. The House proposal says, set a safety standard, and if you meet that standard, there should be some safe harbor for you. That seems reasonable to me. So I hope we could take it up, because I have a feeling if that bill was put up, the Senate would vote to proceed to the bill after some discussion about amendments. If it stayed somewhat intact in the form that it's in now, I think it would get the votes to pass.
Yeah, that I was hopeful after the problem solver proposal came out as well, and continue to be hopeful. We need this bill, and maybe if it has to delay till the lame duck or the post-election session, so be it. But it's not getting better. Businesses are facing more and more challenges, as are people, and there needs to be additional assistance to get us to that post-COVID time when the economy goes again. You've been generous with our time. Let me just throw one other thing. I certainly don't want to let the opportunity pass without asking someone who's on foreign relations. And what do you think? I mean, forget about whether it's Trump or Biden as the president, but when we go into 2021, what are the major, in your point of view, what is the major kind of issues internationally from a foreign perspective that we should be focused on as a nation?
Well, that could be an hour, but I'll just do two really fast. Everybody's going to agree, would answer this question the same way I'm going to say it. Everybody who's listening to this call, the U.S.-China relationship is going to be the most important in the world and the most important in the United States for the next 80 years. And it's this competition, sometimes confrontation, sometimes cooperation. It's a complex relationship. President Trump has had some correct instincts, in my view, about things. I often disagree with the way he goes about it. So, for example, on trade, I think he's had the right instinct, but using trade sanctions against Canada, Mexico, the EU, ended up hurting our ability to cobble together the multinational coalition and match up against China in the way that would be most effective. But the U.S.-China relationship is going to be absolutely critical. The second thing is we're going to have to re-engage in some of these international institutions, the WHO, the Paris Climate Accord, because I think there's a whole series of threats that know no boundaries. The pandemic, climate change, 65 million refugees and asylees moving from country to country, and migrants because of weather emergencies and civil wars and other disasters. And you have to have a global framework for dealing with that issue to mitigate the consequences of it. We've just seen how destabilizing Syrian refugees have been to European politics and even American politics. So some of the world's biggest problems right now are not ways that, America first or America alone can solve. We need somebody who has an understanding that even if they can make you tear your hair out sometimes, these global institutions or treaties are important for solving some of the big issues that are the 21st century's big challenges.
Yeah, you're so right. And when you mentioned tearing your hair out, that's a phrase that is difficult for me to appreciate. But
it was
thank you. You should be. You were right to mention, by the way, when you were talking about COVID, the early action. And I think all of us, and certainly members of the Real Estate Roundtable, appreciate the quick, deep action that was taken this spring on this past spring. Had you not done that, sir, the economy would be in much, much worse shape. People would be in much, much worse shape. Jobs would be worse. So we thank you for that. And also on this foreign international issues, you were successful earlier this year, I think back in January or February, on a congressional resolution to rein in activities in Iran and other areas without additional congressional action. So we thank you for that, and thank you for your time. It looks like you must be in Virginia, because I look out the window and it's a beautiful day. So you must be in Virginia. I'm sure you've got a very big day ahead. Is there anything else?
No, Jeff. I mean, last thing I'll say, I just touched upon it. We have to do rent relief because, again, providing eviction moratoriums is a good thing to do, or foreclosure moratoriums, a good thing to do. But if we get to the end of this and people just have big, essentially like balloon payments that they owe, that's bad for them, whether it's a small business owner or a renter. And if those who are operating properties with renters, whether they're commercial or residential, don't have a cash flow that's incoming to do the maintenance, to pay off loans or bonds, then that poses huge jeopardy. So I'm glad that we focused upon moratoriums going forward, but that's not sufficient. There has to be rental assistance, and that is a part of the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal, and it needs to be.
But I really appreciate you bringing us back to that point, because it is critical. People and businesses cannot emerge from, they're going to emerge from this in a weakened state anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And emerging with, as a business with new rental arrears on their back, they're not going to be able to hire. And if people have these big rent obligations, that's not good. So you're right on. We appreciate that comment extremely, very much. And look forward to working with you, sir. And obviously, I know you get out and enjoy the hiking and everything, and please do that. Stay healthy, stay well, and keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it.
All right, Jeff, really, thanks for asking me to be on today. Good to be with you again.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.